LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems.
Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
And so 8 has become 4. The URC quarterfinals are done and dusted, and we are set for 2 mouth-watering semi-finals. We'll be reviewing every kick, every pass, every run of those quarterfinals, understanding what went wrong and what went right for those who participated, and we'll be asking, what is next for the glorious rivalry between the Bulls and Glasgow, the one that is defining the URC era? And we'll be wondering whether or not that this game between Leinster and the Stormers is the definitive one for both of their seasons. Let's start the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the URC Rewind. I am joined by the full panel this week of South African Mohammed, Irish Adam, and Scottish Ethan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
I, for the purposes of this podcast, am Welsh Hugh. I have something to say this week, but I shan't next week. It's been nice. Anyway, so quarter-final time. Adam's back. We didn't do a Champions Cup review last week. I figured that most people would be pretty well catered for Champions Cup final review podcasts. You know, there was 1 or 2 knocking about, so I thought we'd be okay.
I went into hiding, so I'm back now. I went into hiding. It's just, was there finals on last week? I refuse to do that.
And you couldn't pay Mohammed to pretend to give a shit anyway. So
it's so many South African people involved.
So let's get talking about quarterfinals, and we're going to talk about them in order of which they happened. Now, I might have to refresh the page here, lads, because the URC website at the moment isn't showing that the games actually occurred. It's just showing that they're due to kick off. So, here we go. It's done. It's all right. They did it just in time, just for us. They knew. They thought, oh, shit, better update the website because the Rewind lads are about to start. So, we begin at the beginning with Glasgow versus Connacht. Ethan, a cracking old game of rugby, this.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that the most exciting match and arguably the closest match was the first one. As really, it could have gone either way until about, what, was it the 70th odd minute? Well, maybe not 70th.
Yeah, 68 minutes was the 4th Glasgow try.
Yeah. But no, it was a great game that if you haven't watched it, would you say URC kind of at its best when it's quite an evenly matched game?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, according to Prem Rugby's salary cap report, which I read last week, in that report, which is about Prem Rugby, it identifies the URC as the closest league. Which isn't true for the other 3 games we're about to talk about, but let's maximise it whilst we talk about this one.
Yeah, it was a nice summer, or almost summer's evening at Scotstoun. And yeah, it was quite nervy for the first bit. Because Glasgow had stopped Connacht scoring. I think it was on like the 4th minute. They managed to turn it over, but then Connacht just ran it straight back like 2 minutes later. And was it was quite hard to watch at some points, and that I felt bad for Connacht because Connacht worked really hard to get to the other end of this pitch. Doing it like the old-fashioned way,
Yeah.
and then they either got turned over, held up, or Glasgow did something like completely outrageous to score. And yeah, it was kind of a shame for Connacht that I felt if Connacht was in any of the other games this week, they would have put up either got through or they would put it would have been significantly closer. But
Two very similar teams in their playing style, like high ball in play. I think there was a 4-minute period where the ball didn't go out of play in the first half, and it was, I think it literally went from one 5-meter line to the other and then back to halfway again. Literally, it covered the whole pitch. And I thought, God, if it carries on like that, there's going to be some knackered players on the pitch by the end. And I think eventually just Connacht gave out. I think maybe fatigue affected some of the decision making as well. And there was just a couple of mistakes. Sorry, I'm only today on the quarterfinal point of the URC season seeing Finlay Beelam's profile picture on the URC website. Who is this man?
He's he looks a bit like Thor in that photo.
Is this him auditioning for the He-Man movie?
Yeah, you might as well. But actually, I wouldn't have that. I would have him down as a He-Man type. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so there was a couple of mistakes from Connacht in there as well. Like there was a poor kick which led to the Kyle Stain 50-22, which ultimately led to a try. I think on Kyle Rose, Josh Mackay's try. Sorry. The Connacht's 13 makes a bit of a mistake. I'll see if I can find some clips of it later. But just a bloody credible season in the end for Connacht.
Yeah. It's the type of performance as well. Like I'd say that Connacht fans would be like, of course, disheartened to not make it through. But I thought that, as we all sort of said, it was quite a close game. It was like the best of the URC. I think it really shown. Stuart Lancaster's got in this squad playing some quite scary rugby at times. I think they're going to be really looking forward to next season already and getting that ground running, especially with the Champions Cup qualification as well. I thought Joshua Oni had his big game for Josh. I did think that him coming off the pitch, I think it was I don't exactly remember the time. It was just after, I think, the second half. But I think him coming off really showed how Connacht sort of struggled when he came off. I thought that was one of his best
it's as
games.
if I knew this highlight was going to show a close up of him.
Yeah, perfect. But I do think that him getting signed on to another year contract with Connacht is a really good thing because they've got Kieran Frawley next season, and that's going to be a battle for that shirt as well.
That was a question I had in my mind to ask you: is do you think it's given that Kieran Frawley, who is the best 10 in Ireland, and everyone's been saying so for 2 years. Definitely, don't check. Is it a given that he comes and starts ahead of him?
I think the move wouldn't have happened if it wasn't a given. I don't think the move. I honestly don't think the move would have happened. Like, I think him moving to Connacht is such a clear sign. When you look at the other provinces and you're like, who has a nailed on starting 10? You've got Ulster with Murphy, you've got Munster with Crawley. You've got those players, and Leinster, who have about 3 bajillion fly halves that they can pick from. But
Charlie Tector.
Yes, Charlie Tector, the nation's favorite. Anyway, but he's not like Joey Carberry from next season as well. But it's one of those that I think the move wouldn't have happened if he's going to be playing 15 next year. Do you know what I mean? I'd be very, very, very shocked if he plays 15 next year. I think this is one of those moves that it's also for a World Cup standpoint, is to try and get him playing more 10, because we've got a bit of an identity crisis when it goes down to our second base level 10. What happens there? So yeah, but I did think Josh played an exceptionally well game. I think Connacht's fight back as well towards the end really showed, that they didn't really give up. Finlay Bealham scoring a try in the 72nd minute as well. That was one of those that they weren't they were down and out by then, but also it's a very Stuart Lancaster way of, like pushing up for the fight. I think it was Glasgow's second row that scored one of the slowest.
Yeah.
I think Glasgow have my award.
Oh, see if I can find it.
Glasgow have my
It was
award.
like a giraffe with 3 legs.
Yeah, it's when at the start of the season, I think when Dan Lancaster once intercepted a ball, I called it the slowest acceleration I've ever seen
Oh, it's
out
not
of a
on.
player ever. Oh,
Oh,
it must be. It has to be somewhere. But yeah, it was when yeah, I forgot his name. Ethan, you know his
Uh,
name, wouldn't you?
Yari Guntabeji.
Yeah, it's when he picks up that ball and he sees that little gap. But the one rule that you get taught in rugby throughout all of, if you've ever played even like mini rugby, is there's pillars. Like lads, there's pillars. But he just grabbed the ball and it was almost like like slow motion getting to try. It was a very well taken try, and also I think because he's nearly touching 7 foot, it does help.
Yeah.
It does help for the reach. But it's like those little things, those little moments that Connor need to sharpen up on. But as I said, I think that Connor would see this season as more of a positive than a negative. Their fight back's been remarkable. Like their fight back has been remarkable, and they can leave this URC season with their heads held high. Well, I'm going to be speaking a lot about another Irish province whose heads are a bit dipping at the minute. But when you compare the likes of Connacht and Munster, and even Ulster in that bracket as well, that Connacht have probably had the second best season of an Irish province out of the whole, out of the
that sounds
whole.
like a good one for the comments. Let us know in the
It,
comments. Who
yeah, it
has the
is.
second best season in Ireland?
But because I feel like Leinster have the de facto best because they've gotten past everything. But I think it's one of those that I think Connacht next year with their recruitment as well is remarkable. I just think that play Glasgow this time next year, and with all of their tactics they've got, I think their tactics were really good as well. As you said, it's just little brain errors. Look at the scrum. Like the scrums were also as well big factor of the game. 100% one on both sides. It's one of those that it was a great, great URC match.
Only
And
5
also,
scrums each, though. That's remarkable.
yeah, very sticky hands that day. But
Mm.
it was one of those that I don't think Connacht can be very disheartened at a Glasgow team that could and probably should go on to win the whole thing.
Ooh, I don't hate it as a take. I don't hate it as a take. Going back to you then, Ethan.
If I speak, I'm in trouble.
after they after they got knocked out by Toulon and they went on a tour to South Africa, it looks like there was a big old wobble happening up in Glasgow, and they've gotten back on the horse. They had 2 solid enough home wins, and it looks like now they're back. They've rediscovered themselves. They've found themselves again, and this is proper Glasgow that we're watching now. Is it just as simple as Georgie Horn's back?
I think it's not just him. He's a major part of it because as I always say, he's got that energy that he brings to tell everyone to get their finger out. He does the hands thing out. Come on, guys. You could actually hear him in the mic at times going like, yeah, Batty, let's go. Stuff like that. But I don't think that was this week. But I mean, you've got him back. I mean, he's a bit dicey at the moment because I think it was his arm or his shoulder that basically, as my cousin pointed out when we were watching it, he was on the wing after because I think someone stood on his arm or something like that. So he couldn't catch or he couldn't really do anything. So they just put him onto the wing. So hopefully he's fine for Saturday. But I think Scott Cummings being back is also a big one.
Mm-hmm. British National Line, people forget.
Yep. And it's just having that forward pack that if they're moving, that allows the fastball that Glasgow desperately needs.
This is the one, by the way. This is the one where I asked, I WhatsApped a defense coach because that's my life apparently, and I said, "Is this just good play, or has 13 made a mistake here?" So this is like your typical Sione Tuipulotu involvement here, where it's the behind angle that I want. Watch how close it is. Watch how late Sione Tuipulotu leaves it before he passes the ball. He's basically tackles there, and the ball is still in his hands. But then he gets it to Lancaster, who obviously does, and it looks quite easy. But you have to watch Connacht 13, who is this guy. he's committed where he doesn't need to. He's got plenty of time to bounce out, and as the phrase that was told to me, close the door there and move over. But he doesn't. Now look how many Connacht players are honeypotting around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that area, and he just makes it super easy for Glasgow to finish. So that is a mistake. So that's kind of the analogy that I've been using for Glasgow versus Connacht is like Tesco versus Waitrose, and you're like, it's all the same food, lads. For our international viewers, from Mohammed, that's Tesco's a normal kind of supermarket. Waitrose is an expensive supermarket, and you're kind of like, it's all the same food. So why would I pay the extra money? And then like your mother-in-law or something takes you to the posh supermarket, and you go, oh, yeah, this is way better. And that's kind of what Connacht and Glasgow are. Very similar teams, but one is just, taste the difference.
Wasn't expecting a Waitrose ad to be put. There's no. It's one of those that like
A free ad, no less.
I do agree with that analogy because you can almost, you can see what Connacht are trying to produce, and it's probably what Glasgow are producing at the minute, and that's probably Stuart Lancaster's ideal way of playing as well. But yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Imagine being sponsored by Waitrose though. Like, talk about life-changing sponsorships.
Life-changing sponsor. That's the thing. Like, I think there's only one on the whole of Merseyside. There you go.
Wow.
That's your fun fact. There's your fun fact there.
Anyway, there's plenty of tangents to go on there, but we shan't. So congratulations to Glasgow. I look forward to talking to you in the next episode after you have played our next team, Mohammed, that we need to talk about, which is the Bulls. So I've got lots of takes on this game. I've got lots of thoughts, but I'll ask for yours first. What did you think of this game?
This is exactly what I wanted the Bulls to do. Look, Munster might not have had their first choice fly off, but they still put up a fight for most of the first half, and then the Bulls just kept consistently chipping away at them. Bulls did what they usually do in terms of like soften the opposition up with a really good forward play. I thought Cameron Anakom played really well throughout the game, but improved as the game went on. I think they took advantage of some of the sort of mistakes from Munster as well, but also like fantastic atmosphere, great weather in Pretoria, almost as nice as what I experienced in Stellenbosch watching the baby box. And then the Munster players, especially the last 20 minutes, they seem like way off their feet. And the thing is that maybe I thought Munster would put up more of a fight because I mean this is a team. A lot of these players actually won a URC title in Cape Town, but they didn't really come to the party. And then as the Bulls improved, Munster seemed to fade, and then the Bulls used this opportunity to maybe just finish off the game and then even shift mentally towards next week. So I think the Bulls backline play has evolved a lot through the season, and they're just continuing on from the last 2 seasons of like just having not just big forwards but effective forwards and the right type of depth.
Stat for you, Mike Haley kicked his 6th 50-22 of the season, which is the most of any player. Oh. So I'm
remarkable.
I'm glad that you brought up the backline play, Mohammed, because we've kind of joked throughout the season, are they the Blue Bulls? They were the business class Bulls for a little while. But now I think we need to start calling them the basketball Bulls with some of these offloads. Like, this is very new for them. It's like watching a French team at times, and it's risky and it goes wrong a lot, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, we saw that with Johan Ackerman at the Lions, and then at his time at Gloucestershire, and even when he was head coach, and then he got demoted to assistant coach in Japan. So he definitely has a way of playing, which is interesting because I mean he was a lock, he's a forward in his playing days. So one might think like, oh, maybe these teams would be more conservative.
Sorry, interrupted. This is the Villy LaRue one. This is so good. I love this. This is the. I'm going to ask you more about him in a minute, but this is the one where he takes it. And who is this guy who does a goose step and beats 3 defenders and then gets a try assist for Curtly Aronson? What year is it?
It's the definition of what is Unk doing right now.
Which is weird because we thought maybe he lost his place to Kriel early in the season, and he was on the bench more as like a fullback / fly half backup. But
he's not been playing.
He still got it in spurts. You can't like overplay Villy LaRue like you do Pollard. Pollard, like you said earlier in the season, they're playing him into form and it's worked out. Whereas Villy LaRue, they have to use him cleverly, and that I don't even think Vali's going to start next week. I think he'll probably be on the
Oh, I
bench
think he
tactically.
definitely is in this form.
So we'll see how things pan out. I think also Stravino Jacobs on the wing is such a big dude, and the way he stepped and accelerated away from that monster. Stravino, who hasn't played a lot since he signed for the Bulls straight out of high school, from his sort of high school playing career, like he had a fantastic game as well.
Yeah, cracking finish it was. So as did Ambrose Papier, another player of the match awards. He seems to get them every time I look for thumbnails for Bulls players. It just seems to be Ambrose Papier has gotten player of the match. Every time he's there, he's grinning with his medal. And I'm like, I swear I've seen that photo a million times this season. But I guess it's interesting, maybe more interesting to talk about this Bulls performance in the context of when they come up against Glasgow and whether they'll be the brave Bulls and play the same way. But I'm fascinated by what they're doing. And I don't think that this Bulls team is at its peak at the moment. I think it needs another year to learn this new game plan. I'll bring up the stats for people to have a look. But at times, Mohammed, I felt it was like they were playing with their food. They're kind of like, I'll give Munster a couple of tries. Be sporting. Don't want to nil them in a quarterfinal. That would be rude. And then just destroyed them.
Yeah, it's just weird. Sometimes you watch it and you think, is this a quarterfinal? It feels like just a round robin league game. But yeah, the crowd really enjoyed it. 19,000 people in the stadium. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. I mean, the Bulls have struggled a lot to get people in the stadium beginning of the season, but now they seem to be really into it. And this seems like this is going to be their last home game. So, yeah, I'm really impressed by them. I think no major injuries coming out of this game. Um, and then a couple of players who didn't even make the match 23 that could fly over as well, maybe make an impact if it's
21 clean breaks. My gosh, that's
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's for Munster. For Munster, I think this is sums up their season and the slip that they've had from the start of the season when they performed so well. You have to remember that this is a team that beat Leinster quite handily in Croke Park at the very start of the season, way back when in October
Mm.
time to now. Yes, I know they've struggled with injuries. Tag Byrne, Jack Crowley, and also Tom Ahern, within about 10 minutes failed to HIA. They've lost some of their big name players, but I thought that they were like even in the scrums, it was just nothing was really working. Jeremy Loughlin and Ala Alatoa were having a really tough time in
Again, has
like
Alatoa had a good game for Munster since he signed?
I don't think so. I think it's the definition of, just plugging in a player because he was available. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I don't think it was the best signing that Munster could have made. I think it was the only signing that they could have made. Um, and that really shows with some of his performances he's had for Munster. I think he conceded some lots, conceded a few penalties off the scrum as well. When
Well,
same as
I think the first scrum of the game came from him throwing a forward pass. It's like, dude,
yeah,
help me help you. Like,
yeah,
and
you
then he
know the
knocked,
game.
and then he knocked out Tom Ahern as well.
Yeah, he knocked out Tom Ahern within 10 minutes, which also is very costly in a game like this. I think when you play the Bulls, as we say, like you can get two forms of the Bulls, like business Bulls, or this was like sort of like a beautiful Bulls the way that they were playing, as we said, but Munster didn't really have any type of reaction to it. It just felt like everything was sort of flat. There's a couple of players that I do would like to mention as actually having decent games, in my opinion. Alex Nankivil played quite a decent game. I think he made 59 meters, 12 defenders beaten. So that's a pretty good game considering how many line breaks there were, how many times that the back line were cut out. You still had Alex Nankivil playing his heart out. I refuse to believe that Munster didn't play their heart out. I just think that they've had a very torrid time of trying to piece together what's happening in the background. They've had a few moments that they've shown that this is Munster, they are back, but they've also showed lots of moments where you're like, oh, they might struggle next season. I think, you know, as well, you have the likes of their back row didn't really capitalize. I think Jack O'Donoghue was the only one that really capitalized in that back row as well. But yeah, and even then, O'Donoghue left in the 57th minute through injury. I think injuries and just off-field troubles really hindered this Munster playing, and also just the scope of it as well. Like JJ Hanrahan's a really good replacement 10. And that's what he is. He's a replacement 10. He's there to come off the bench and he's there to be second string. However, when you need him in the big game moments, he just isn't quite hitting that
He's the
mark.
replacement JJ service.
Yeah, he is the replacement JJ service. And to be fair, he does a job most of the time. But I feel like in these high pressure scenarios, it's not the way that Munster want to be playing. And they're probably relying more on Craig Casely as well. But
Well, he
as we
he
saw,
finished the game playing 10.
yeah, that's the thing. Like he finished the game playing 10, but I do think the Bulls had a really good strategy on how to just basically target Craig Casey, and then their
Well,
backline couldn't really function.
when Visa just grabbed him from the scrum
Yeah,
and pulled him into the scrum.
essentially, but that's what they were doing. You have to wind like you can get two types of reaction out of a player doing that, and especially a scrum half like Craig Casey, who is a very good scrum half. I must preface it with like he can even put out a performance of a lifetime, or he can just get toyed about like that for a bit. But I have to say, Munster, as I said before, I think Connacht fans, I would argue that Connacht have had a better season than Munster. Um, and also they've got a lot more to be excited about in terms of next season as well, compared to Munster, which there's some weird like injury laden season that they've had. Is this one to go back to the drawing board?
Well, it's
Clayton
every season
McMillan's
for Munster.
it's
For me, if you sum it up, what went wrong for Munster this season? You just one word, Munster. They just
yeah,
Munstered
they
it.
they,
Like,
they
and
have yeah.
go on.
Sorry, I think Clayton McMillan coming in as well. He had that whole essence of bringing the team through. This is going to be an exciting Munster team. This is what's going to happen. And then midway through the season, with their coaching controversy, he also said himself that he doesn't agree with the call of letting go. And then it's like, what type of atmosphere is in that camp if he's outright saying, I don't agree with the backlash that they're getting off a certain thing? But we're not going to talk about that. But it's really confusing to see the way he speaks as well. Because a couple of weeks ago, he did say like, "Oh, if I'm here next season, or if the board want me next season," I'm like, that's such a weird defeatist attitude to have compared to the very start. As we said, they beat Leinster by 40 odd points at the start of the season in Croke Park. That Munster, very good. But like, if you show any of us that score and to show them where they're at now, it's almost like there's a weird regression there. But then I
Yeah.
think that also might come down to depth as well.
I think
No,
it's also
sorry.
an
Go on.
aspect of the URC's regular season is a marathon.
Mhm.
And it's not so much how you start the season as how you end it. And with Stormers and Munster starting like a house on fire, looking fantastic, not just that, but also in their kits and stuff. And Munster having higher expectations than Connacht and not reaching them, and Connacht having more reasonable expectations and exceeding them exponentially.
Yeah.
So all those things factor in. So maybe Munster can take this off season to actually sort of regroup mentally and then and do some clever recruitment. And who knows, they might actually be competitive next season. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, you never know with Munster. You absolutely never know. Ethan, did you catch much of this one? Any thoughts?
No, but again, it's kind of like, as we said about Munster, that I feel like in a way that they were quite lucky to get, was it fifth seeding? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't feel like the fifth
Yeah.
best team in the league by the end.
No, and it just seems, I think it was all their heavy work was done at the very beginning, but
Mm,
also just at the very end that they were lucky to get there. That's still good to make the top eight, but they probably didn't really deserve fifth, which is a bit of a shame that because maybe they might have fared a bit better against someone else, but
no.
or conversely, someone else might have fared better being fifth.
Well, if it wasn't for Craig Casey, I think they might have been in trouble against the Lions. Speaking of Craig Casey, like you rightly say, Adam, he's a fantastic player, and I think he's been Munster's best player, certainly over these last couple of games. I'm quite fed up of him asking for TMO referrals every stop in play. Now at this point, Craig, please
Yeah.
don't be that guy.
Yeah, I do think that there's a growing issue, especially in rugby in general, where we do have to like I feel like players are consistently asking for things to be checked. And also in a way, it's something that I noticed in the Challenge Cup final when Montpellier did it very well. and they stopped the referee in their tracks and went, "Oh, can you actually check that?" And the referee would either go one, yes, or two, no. Like the best probably reaction is, to go for no and wait till the TMO steps in rather than having not your captain come up around.
I think
Well,
in a funny way with this specific scenario, because Piardi refereed Munster last week, and when they had the spitting allegation, Piardi stopped the game and asked the TMO to check it, and they all stood around waiting for it to be checked. So I think that
that's when it can be
Casey's probably
used
learned
good.
yeah, but Casey's probably learned from that of like, oh, I'll just ask him to check everything then.
Yeah.
And Piardi didn't do it this time, to be fair to him. But do you think I'll get cancelled if I mention Munster players pretending to be injured to slow the game down?
Well, maybe. It's gonna be an interesting one to speak about because there is aspects of what type of shithousery we can get away with now in the game of rugby now these days, but it's things that we need to stop.
Now they probably learned it from the Ospreys players, so
Yeah.
They
they get
probably,
away with it.
As long as you
they
don't
probably,
wink at someone, it's fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. They learned from last year. If they get away with a wee wink, and then
Anyway, that's the first two down. But before we go and talk about the second two, just want to remind people that for those who are watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing, hitting that subscribe button for the Global Game Line. This is the most diverse rugby podcasting platform that you will find anywhere in the world. There's not only a weekly URC show, which is the heartbeat of the whole channel, if you ask me. There is an Irish rugby show, which did very well for views last week. Fair play to him. There's a South African rugby show twice a week now, Mohammed, that is on.
Yeah.
There is a French rugby show. Scrum of the Earth is on this channel as well. There's an American rugby show. There's a women's rugby show. And there's probably a couple that I've forgotten. So if that sounds like a bit of you, it's a bit of rugby for a bit of everybody after all, then please consider subscribing. Right then. What's the next one? Stormers. Ugh. The Stormers. Oh dear. Right. So, Mohammed, they won. So I have heard everybody say this because in the post-match show on Premier Sports, which there was no South Africans on, to be fair, they said that they weren't that impressed with the Stormers and they didn't think that the scoreline really reflected the game. I've since spoken to other people who said the same. So as someone who lives in Cape Town, do you think that this scoreline reflects the game?
Not to a greater extent, and I've heard the same thing. I mean, you've seen on the Bit of an Animal group chat as well, Bryce wasn't that impressed with this performance, but they got the job done. Look, it took a while to get going. I think the first points were scored on the 18th minute, sorry, excuse me. But then once the Stormers sort of like pulled away a little, look, I think around the 60th minute, the Cardiff were 5 points close to the Stormers, but I never felt like the Stormers were in any danger. Did they put in an impressive performance overall? No, not necessarily. Losing your fly off at a certain stage, hopefully he'll be okay, like your starting fly off, but then having your Matia actually to come on, who's a good player in his own right, that helps. I think the Stormers played in sort of fits and starts, but everybody I know who attended the game was riveted. All 30,000 of them, more people in the stadium than ran the Cape Town Marathon a week ago. And I was impressed of the sort of progression over the course of the season of Nchunu at loose head prop starting, who used to be the Oxen Chair understudy.
A definitive season for him.
Yeah, I mean, people are so quick to write kids off because when he broke into the Sharks team, he was thought of as like a very highly rated prospect, and he did play well on and off and that type of thing, as one does when you're still young. And then the season before he left the Sharks, he did regress somewhat, especially in terms of his scrumming. And then we'd always think of like, okay, he can scrum, but like he's very good in the loose, that type of thing. I think moving to Cape Town has helped him a lot. Is it just a change of environment, change of coaches, change of voices? It helped a lot. So yeah, look, I always thought that the Stormers would win. Having Damien Willemse obviously at fullback helps a lot.
He's amazing. He's an amazing rugby player. Like it's just little moments. I don't think that the Stormers are getting the best out of Damien Willemse. I'll say it here and now. But he has moments, especially defensively. People don't talk about his defense. Defensively, he's amazing.
And when he does play fullback, his ability to
and not the
screen
wing.
the back.
That's over with.
Yeah. That experiment. Stop trying to copy Toulouse. And when he does play fullback, he's sort of shielding at the back line. when the team's sort of up, especially when they're defending, and being able to sort of anticipate where the teams are going to kick to, and then pull a counter from there. That helps a lot. Um, I think I obviously have been on this podcast and bit of an animal on the record saying I just love having him at 12, that type of thing, sort of like a double pivot type move. Because I mean, he has played even for South Africa against Georgia in the World Cup, 1 or 2 World Cups ago at fly off. So he can shift into that channel as well, receive the ball as first receiver. But yeah, and then overall, this is more the settled Stormers backline because Dan du Plessis there, he's more sort of like a crash ball, and then getting the captain Rowan Nel there to organize the defense, that helps a lot. And then a lot of pressure was under on Imad Khan to like step up with Kobus Reinach injured with Angra as his backup. But I think Imad Khan's actually grown. I mean, he's had a week off because Stormers weren't involved in the Champions Cup or the Challenge Cup. So Imad Khan's grown across the season as well. So I think they've managed them well because a lot of people were saying like, oh, why didn't they just keep Hashim Pete because Hashim Pete's from Cape Town, but they've got their own like list of highly prospect scrum halves, and Imad Khan's a baby buck as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Zas also got a lot of criticism, but he did well for his try, I will say.
Well, it's nice of Damien Willemse to assist him after they tried to kill each other in training, by all accounts.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to hold off just launching into Cardiff chat now. I mean, I'll bring up the stats to just have a look at. I felt that the Stormers, I think you put it rightly. I think they said they did what they needed to do. And it wasn't always pretty. And I think that, as I'll come on to talk about, I think they got some pretty soft tries off Cardiff that they wouldn't necessarily get against, I'm sorry to say, a higher quality opposition. They're not always fluid, are they?
Not at the best of times. So we're going to see how far that gets them next week. But there needs to be a rethink. They have a backline coach. They can't. If they do this again next season, then we've got some serious problems because they do have the talent. But why can't they get the sort of even Cardiff 2 weeks ago in Cardiff, they were doing like really good, clever, insightful backline moves that created space, much like we saw Glasgow against Connacht earlier in the weekend. So it's not like the talent's not there. Is that their game plan? I mean, having Rowan Ackerman on the bench to make an impact, as well as much sort of criticized Morat, that then gives you the forward momentum to create the space, but they're not exploiting it, and they're still, to a large degree, relying on individual ingenuity, which is only going to get you so far.
Yeah, but that's been the case for years now at this point, hasn't it? From a Cardiff point of view, and this is obviously the last time we're going to talk about any Welsh region this year, unless we do a season review pod, which I suppose we will. I think the stat that I just had on the screen there, 14 penalties, 2 yellow cards. You're not going to beat the Stormers away from home with moments like that. And especially with one of those yellow cards, they went to uncontested scrums, which meant they went down to 13. Now, to be fair, the Stormers did not score a try whilst Cardiff were down to 13. But I think that probably says a bit more about the Stormers than before, than Cardiff. But so many softs. Like, okay, they were getting hosed at the scrum, and there's a lot of teams who are going to struggle in the scrum against the Stormers. But like at the Mall and things, it was just a penalty machine, and there were some really dumb ones in there as well. And then you have a look at, say, this one from Johan Loys. Just what is he thinking? Just, was it ever on? Was it ever ready to execute? That is forward, by the way. But again, it's just things that you don't need. And yet, look at from a Stormers point of view. Okay, the Stormers, I think, had a few kind of tries disallowed and a few held up. So you could say they could have scored them anyway. But there were some soft old tries from a Cardiff point of view for the Stormers as well. And we saw both sides of Cam Winnett in this as well. Because he gets the intercept early on. And, well, he doesn't get the intercept, but he finishes off the intercept. I think it was actually Jacob Beaton who got the intercept itself. He's a player who I've been really impressed with over these 2 Stormers games. And I've been looking at his stats. He does seem like a good player. And I can see why a lot of people thought that he would play for Wales more than he has. But you got this from Cam Winnett, finishing off intercepts, but then this for this Stormers try. I'm sorry, this isn't acceptable, and this is why he's not in the Wales squad anymore, because he's got him lined up there, and he just gets sat down. And there was another one as well that we don't have the highlight clips for, where his defense just wasn't. It's not where it needs to be, and that's why he's not an international anymore, unfortunately. So, from a Cardiff point of view, I don't think that you can say that they played well. I think that the game last week against the Stormers was their best game of the season, where they played exceptionally well, and I don't think that they played well. I think they showed a lot of guts to stick in it, probably a lot longer than they thought, and it's easy to forget. I mean, if I look at the timestamps of the Stormers' tries, if I can just get it up for a second. Timestamps for the Stormers' tries, 64 and 60 and 78. Cardiff were back into the game on the hour mark. When did they score? Yeah, exactly. James Botham scored on the 60th minute. They were back in it. And a lot of people didn't give them that chance. So I think they deserve a lot of credit. And I think that they've overperformed this season as a whole. I think they've done a lot better than anybody expected them to. And I think it's probably, you have to say, the best URC season a Welsh side has ever put in. It's a shame that I don't know. I think a bit like Connacht, they can leave this season with the head held high, but I think in this actual quarter final, they didn't put in a performance analogous to Connacht's, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm glad you all agree. Silence is complicity.
I would agree with that. I think the Cardiff side, probably should have done what we almost did and focus on the Challenge Cup, because they were quite good in the Challenge Cup as well. Like, I think there's like a lot of moments that Cardiff showed really well. Like, I think they were second at one point, weren't they? They were second. They were second in December, weren't they? There's a lot of it shows how close URC was, considering that they finished below Munster. And when you look at Munster's in the middle of the season, especially, Cardiff were on the high, whilst Munster were starting the sort of downward spiral. But I think I would have to agree with you in the sense that, much like Connacht, they can be proud of that season, but different to Connacht, I don't feel like Cardiff would have the tools to replicate it next season. Whereas I think Connacht could only get better in that sense, which is it just tells you the state of Welsh rugby in that sense. It's quite a sorry sign for like Wales to have in that position, like that sort of opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think if you look at the last 3 seasons, which has seen a Welsh team in the playoffs in every season, the Ospreys got it and then fell away the season after. Scarlets got it, fell away this season badly. Cardiff got it, and I don't think there's any guarantee that Cardiff are going to keep it next season. Like I said, I think they've overperformed this season to what they should have done. But, tune in on the Wrap channel to the Cardiff Central podcast to hear more about that. Anyway, last game of the quarterfinals, Leinster versus the Lions, the Fidelity Secure Drive Lions, 59-10. So I got a stat for you boys. And I put this in the group chat earlier, but unfortunately, most of the ladies and gentlemen who are listening aren't in the group chat. So I'm going to have to tell them it separately. So in the last 5 seasons, in the game after Leinster have been knocked out of the Champions Cup, whether that be in a semi-final or final. So in 2022, they beat Glasgow 76-14. 2023, they didn't have a game because they were already out of the URC by that time, so that doesn't count. In 2024, it was 33 points to 7 that they won. In 2025, it was 76 points to 5 that they won. And now in 2026, it's 59-10. So, Adam, rocking up after you've just lost the biggest game of your season and slapping around a URC opposition is just Leinster's thing.
It is. There's something very Pro 12 about this. There's something very we say about Leinster after getting knocked out of the Champions Cup, but there was something really like Leinster 2013 almost about this performance, where they rock up against this team that we've said this about Cardiff in the last one. The Lions have outperformed themselves and have done very well to get there, but when you put them in front of this Leinster team who are hurting and who are quite I would say they were very, very up for this match. there was just nothing that you can do to stop this Leinster machine. I would have Leinster down as one of my finalists. I said about Glasgow earlier on, but I would have Leinster down as one of my finalists in the form that they're given right now. There's nothing scarier than a disheartened Leinster team, in my opinion. Um, I think the first couple of minutes, it was like it was sort of like Leinster's game to play, um, with their. I, I'm gonna say that mention this as well. It's probably gonna be in the Interpro show a lot as well. But the 7,000 fans that were there for a quarter final
Yeesh.
also showed a very pro 12 mind to it.
That's voting with your feet.
It
Standing
is.
room only.
Yeah, it was like when Edinburgh used to play in Murrayfield and they used to have that weird standing part at the side. That's what it almost felt like. But Aviva fatigue is a real thing. I think this game would have been like way better in the RDS, which I thought would have been done by now. I didn't think anyone was thinking it was going to be this long, but yeah, I thought Leinster were remarkable. I think Dan Sheehan popping up on the wing should be disallowed unless he plays for Ireland because it's just not fair. I thought Sheehan played a really good game. I thought Prendergast had a pretty decent game as well. I think this is something that we also say about the URC is that sometimes the golfing class is something to be like quite champions in that sense. But when I see this Lions team, and it's the team that we all know, it's the team that we've been discussing throughout the season in terms of how good they've been playing. But at the end of the day, when you have the likes of like Dan Sheehan on fire, Hugo Keenan on fire. You had James Lowe in a week that is shown that he's probably leaving Leinster at the end of the season, scoring his 70th try at 100 caps, his 100th cap, scoring two tries to make him Leinster's all-time try scorer. That's pretty remarkable. And hats off to him. Whether my opinion on him staying or not, it's not going to be discussed probably to the Interpro show. But I thought this Leinster team were just in all aspects of this game were pretty remarkable. Like I also think the only time there's only like a couple of moments where I thought that there was a bit of stupidity. The Thomas Clarkson yellow card could have been a red. It was one of those
He's
that it was like,
tombstoned him, man.
yeah, he did. He just flipped him over.
And the
And
referee's gone low degree of danger. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
yeah,
What do you think of the Dan Sheehan hurdle?
you can't jump. That's the thing. Like you have those type of moments where you can't jump over a player because it's quite dangerous. Like it isn't like it's American football where they jump over because they're like athletes that are trained to jump that high. In rugby, it's much more dangerous because you're like, if you're in Dan Sheehan's case, you're like the size of like a small car, and you go at the speed of a Ferrari. Like if you land on that player after that jump, any type of misstep jump in that hurdle, yeah, I just don't agree with hurdling in rugby. But yeah, when you look at the stats as well, Leinster were just completely dominant. It was one of those that I thought that like I think the crowd almost knew that they were going to win this anyway, and that's what it shows. I really do hope that their next week's ticketing would go better, but I do think that for Leinster's sake, how many their road to Europe was all home matches. Their road to the final, this one's probably going to be all home matches as well. There is fatigue there. There's a
Would the
big
final
stadium
be in the
fatigue.
Aviva?
Yeah, it would probably be in Aviva, yeah. But if Glasgow get through, it's probably going to be in Belfast. So it's one of
No,
those
no, it's
that.
confirmed in Murrayfield
No.
now.
Oh, confirmed in Murrayfield. Oh, right,
Yeah.
grand. Okay, I must have missed that memo. But I thought that it's one of those where I think for Leinster's sake, they need this RDS back, and they need the RDS back for that empty-ish stadium feel to feel a bit better. Because in a smaller stadium, it doesn't seem too bad. But when you have it in the Aviva, when it's a knockout game, when you compare it to the Stormers, with the Stormers against Cardiff, there's a massive notable difference, and it's probably ticketing prices. And David would say on the Interpro show himself that a lot of these Leinster fans are picking up tickets week on week, and that does cost a lot of money. I just think that there needs to be, I don't know, they're a victim of their own success in that sense. But yeah, I think very good game by Leinster. I think they're pretty formidable, and I do feel like they're marching their way to the final, as a sort of revenge arc to this season.
Hmm. Ethan, you got any thoughts on this one?
I mean, for context, so me and my wife have just moved out of our flat, and we had like no sleep on Saturday. So when I came back in the evening to watch it, it was quite a dangerous thing. It was not. It wasn't really exciting, to be honest. I felt bad for the Lions in that that wasn't the best display of the Lions, but I don't
Yeah.
think they've ever had a good performance against Leinster.
The Lions haven't won outside of South Africa since they beat Zebra in 2024.
Yeah, which is a bit
Mm.
yikes.
Mm.
Um,
It is a bit yikes. I mean, Mohammed, coming to you, the Lions spent the last 2 weeks in Ireland. They didn't come home. What do you say to the allegations that they spent those 2 weeks in Temple Bar?
I understand that's sort of an alcohol establishment. Um, Look, I didn't expect them to win, but I didn't expect this sort of flat performance. But in fairness to them, they're missing a couple of key players. First choice scrum half, first choice blindside flank, and obviously Asan Bakane is suspended now for 18 months under extremely controversial circumstances. So, like Connacht, they had reasonable expectations. They've never made the URC playoffs before. Um, and they sort of did really well when playing in South Africa. So this is the first time they've ever made the playoffs. I think they'll go back and say, look, we're getting some reasonable recruits next season. And most notably, Bowen Fenter is leaving Scotland to sign for the Lions. He didn't sign
Mhm.
for any of the other big three URC franchises. And considering they played Leinster 3 weeks ago and they had actually a better game, and Sam Pendergrass had a horrible game. So credit to him for like bouncing back as it relates to that because he had a bad game against the Lions 3 weeks ago. And then last week in the Champions Cup, when the camera kept going to him, the Ronan O'Gara camera, where he looked for long on the side of the pitch every time he looked very serious. Um, they pointed the camera at him and he had a better game. I think his passing was excellent and he sort of made sure he got rid of the ball efficiently and kicking well before the Lions could actually get to him and rough him up like last time. Because I mean, 3 weeks ago he pretended to be injured, so there was that controversy as well, where the female referee had to like tell him off. So look, Lions, good experience playing away. Take the positives and then like again use the Currie Cup, the 7 weeks of Currie Cup regular season if they make the playoffs to even further improve their depth because they do have a lot of good players, including in the Baby Bok team right now that they can then add to their depth. And they're going to be in the Champions Cup next season for the first time. So we wish them the best of luck.
Because of the seeding, they could be playing like Toulouse.
Oh no. I have experience with that. Doesn't go well.
Yeah. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of talking about all four quarterfinals. Now let's look ahead to the semi-finals. And I want to talk about Leinster versus Stormers first. So I have been trying to think. You okay, Adam? You with us? Adam is not with us. He will be back soon. So I've been trying to think, Mohammed, what does Leinster versus the Stormers have to look like for the Stormers to win? And to me, I think it has to be they have to defend like demons. There needs to be a lot of set pieces. And they need to be clinical with the chances that they do get. And I'm just wondering how likely it is that the game actually ends up going like that.
Yeah, and how are the Stormers going to counter that defensive line from Leinster as well? So look, I expect more people in the stadium at least next week because of how many star players there are in the Stormers team. So the Irish people will show up. Cost of living crisis be damned. But the Stormers, slight chance. The thing is though, this is going to be a fantastic game, whatever happens. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. It's probably going to be close, but tactically, with a couple of injuries, people are talking about moving Damien Willemse to 12 now in terms of like what's going on. Um, short turnaround because I mean I understand there's like a gap between the semi-final and the final, but yeah, this is going to have to legitimately be the Stormers' best game of the season because they've moved through the season and they've used a tactic that they haven't used in a while. Like at the beginning of the season, they would bring two locks on and just completely kill you in the scrum, but they're still doing that just by bringing one lock on. So yeah, also like who are Leinster going to play? Because I mean they played a massively different team from the final to this last week's game. So that's what. Whereas the Stormers, you know which team they're going to play because there's very distinctively as to who their best players are.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, my feeling is that Leinster are favourites for this, and as Mohammed said, that for Stormers to win it, they need to have their best game of the season. I, the thing about Leinster is that every preview of every Leinster game is going to be the same on this show, really, because they are a team which it really is, no matter who's on the pitch, the same week in week out every game.
Yeah.
But what from a Leinster point of view, what are you worried about from the Stormers?
I'd be worried about how electric their backline can be. I think the one thing that Leinster sort of struggled with in that sense that against Bordeaux was one the heat, but also their backline. It's that defensive setup that they need to get perfect. We say that Stormers need to have a perfect game. I also would argue that Leinster do need to have a very much perfect game. I think that sort of, back three defense needs to be quite key in that. I think, the speed of that back three that Stormers have is reminiscent, not quite the same as Bordeaux, but you would argue that they're quite a similar set up team in that sense. I do feel like them playing at the Aviva Stadium does really help Leinster's favor in terms of they're home grow they're in home soil. They don't need to travel. The traveling does do a lot to those South African teams. The same as if the Northern Hemisphere was to go down to the South African teams as well. I just think that, that Leinster, when I look at that Leinster team that played on the weekend, I think I think they did have a lot of their starters starting. I'd say that's some of their strongest players starting. That second row, for example, would be the second row that they had. The second row they had starting in the Champions Cup final. The likes of Gibson Park would be playing. You would have that backline staying relatively the same, I reckon. If Sam was to be handed the 10 shirt for next week, I don't think many people would be mad. Either way, Harry or Sam, it would work. It would work for them because it's Leinster. Having that back row as well. You look at the back row for this game, for the Lions game, and it was Doris, Penny, and Deegan. You have Van de Fleer sitting on the bench as well. Like there's a lot of you can do a lot of chopping and changing around with this side, but also you can also look at this as Leinster don't they need to prove themselves. Leo Cullen has the pressure on him now. There's a lot of people saying Cullen out. There's a lot of people arguing Cullen in. I would argue you'd rather keep Cullen and look around what's happening as well, just to see, because, Leinster's height of expectations is that they should be winning trophies. So this team that they're playing, I think for Leinster's sake, it'd be like little tweaks. I'd say like Rico Iwani had a decent enough game at 13, but we would all say on the podcast that wing is his position. But would you drop James Lowe after scoring two tries? It's those little conversations around this game that Leo Cullen would probably be looking at. Well, Hugh, you've met him and you've spoke to him in a press conference. He seems to know a lot about the Irish press. He does know all the pressure that's mounting up to him. So I'd say for a Leinster standpoint, is the little pressures like that will get to them, and the height of expectations that could get to them, but also could make a really good team as well. And I think that they're probably on the right course to beat the Stormers.
If the Stormers defeat Leinster, but then go on to lose the final, Leinster then fire Jacques Nienaber, and then the Stormers get Jacques Nienaber. Perfect scenario.
I don't think the IRFU have money to sack Jack Niemeyer. I
Is
don't think
is
we have
Jack
the
a
money.
Cape Town boy? Where's he from?
Yeah, he's from no, he's from inland because he was in the army with Rassie, so he's more platteland area. As Fok of Polisie says, helemaal in die platteland.
Okay. Ethan, where do you see this one going?
I feel it's probably going to be Leinster. Though you'd hope with all the experience Stormers have had that they might be able to pull something out the bag. That, they narrowly lost to Toulon in a way that, they probably should have won that game. That you'd hope that'd be enough motivation for them to be like, okay, let's look at ourselves and try to get things working. But it's not, you know what I mean? Like the car, yeah, it was Cardiff that they played, that you can't really, you know what I mean, like put that to the side and look, say that the Stormers are going all guns blazing.
Hmm.
That it's not like they've been really tested in like the previous game, that they've not really had that much pressure, whereas Leinster could put the corkscrews on.
It's inarguable that the Stormers have had a decent run of fixtures. I think it's massive that they blew top spot, and I think you have to
Mhm.
view it through the prism of they blew it because they went away to Ulster and Cardiff to finish the season and didn't win either game. And if they'd have won one of them, they'd be in at least top two. And if they're playing this game in Cape Town, it's a completely different story. A completely different story. But, you know, unfortunately, they have to hold the L on that one, in my opinion. So I agree that Leinster are favourites, and it's going to take an almighty effort for the Stormers to turn that around. Moving on to the next one, sticking with yourself, Ethan. Glasgow versus Bulls. I called it the definitive rivalry of the URC era. My favourite URC fixture to watch because of two teams who are so different and yet so good. So, how are you feeling about facing this version of the Bulls?
I mean, I always like playing the Bulls because, as you say, I feel like it is the in Scottish football terms, it would be the new firm rivalry,
Hmm.
in that it's, two teams that have only recently started playing against each other, that has become a bit of a fixture. And it's one of those ones that they bring the best out of each other, that they always seem to raise it. And I think with how close it was against the Bulls in the Champions Cup, that again, I feel like the weather was a bit of a factor in that, but Glasgow did quite well adapting to the weather with how wet it was. That was the game that suited the Bulls. Um, that
It could be raining this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. I mean, it is Murrayfield, so that is hopefully a slight positive.
I was going to ask because how big of a difference does the pitch make? Because us three Northern Hemisphere fans, I mean, you guys support a team who play all their home games on artificial pitches. I support a team who, as of next season, will be the only Welsh team not playing on at least partially artificial. I think Dragons is hybrid. So we all play at least, it feels like half of our games on artificial pitches anyway. But
Mm.
South Africans just find it, they cannot get their heads around playing on artificial pitches. So this game, Ethan, being in Murrayfield, arguably helps the Bulls.
Yeah, but interestingly, it's kind of a leveler because in different ways, in that most of the Glasgow team will regularly play on Murrayfield, so they won't see it's an
Yes, good
issue.
point.
But then the other side of it is that I think it was Scotland Rugby News described it as this, considering it's Murrayfield, that a lot of the Bulls will have also played in that stadium.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they have done very well in that stadium for the last 15 or so years. Um, and then it's also might raise the ante, being like, oh, we're in Murrayfield. It's not often we get to play here, sort of thing. And it's also not Glasgow's actual home stadium, not even their home city. So it is kind of a more of a neutral venue in that way. Um,
What exactly is the rule? Is the rule that it has to be a certain capacity, or because it's not that it needs to be neutral? Because
yeah,
when unless that
it,
rule's changed recently, because the Bulls played all of their knockout games in Pretoria when they had the run to the final. Leinster obviously always play in the Aviva, no matter what. But as
yeah,
we know, that is a neutral venue,
yeah.
and yeah, get Stormers Cape Town and stuff. So it must be a capacity thing.
Yeah, it's a capacity thing because I think there's only four stadiums that could really realistically host it, um, being quite, like over 20,000. But Ibrox, which is Rangers Stadium, really annoying in that their pitch is too short for rugby because it's like not long enough for the
Oh, for the in goal.
yeah, which I think
Ah.
raises a whole thing that all stadiums should be multi-purpose, but that is a whole other conversation. Celtic Park is redoing their grass, and then Hampton's got something on because realistically, it probably would have been Hampton
Hmm.
if Hampton was available. we probably for both of them, which is a bit of a shame. Well, I mean, in one way, it's quite glad it's a pain in the arse getting to Hampton. Whereas to Murrayfield, you can just get off at Haymarket and just walk. But yeah, it's like the fact that semi-final Murrayfield's available, but it's the final that if we do get there, they've had to basically shift everything after that concert.
Mm.
So it's a
Um,
Murrayfield. Does that mean Princess Anne's going to be there with her running glasses, like in the Six Nations?
oh
I
man,
hope so.
She'd probably love it if she probably would love it if she had the chance.
yeah,
URC best league from a Royal. Imagine that,
yeah.
hey? Imagine that.
So, Mohammed, from a Bulls point of view, how do you think that the Bulls will tackle this game, or play? What game plan are you expecting? Because they'll be brave to throw the offloads like they did against Munster, against Glasgow away from home.
Yeah, so they're playing this team now for the third time in a row. I think they're going to play just about the same tactics they have for the last 4 weeks. This really excites me because the Bulls, really, of all the four South African franchises, they're the ones who are able to get results in the Northern Hemisphere more often than not. Yes, there's going to be a quick turnover, but look, Glasgow had a quick turnover and they won the URC in Pretoria. Munster had a quick turnover and they won the URC in Cape Town. So there shouldn't be any excuses. They should just go for it. They should
So,
play their normal, bash
so
them up, but maybe
according
slightly more
to
conservative.
according to my maths, I went and counted earlier. The Bulls actually have a positive win percentage in the North. Out of the 30 that they've played, they've won 18.
And I think that's because
Actually, it
they
might it might be more than 30 actually, because I think that includes a couple of playoff wins. But they have a more than 50% win rate in the North.
Yeah, I think that's because the tactics, even under Jake White prior, were more, I wouldn't say conservative, but more lean towards soften the other team up. People talk about them having large forwards, but they have effective large forwards, and they, unlike the Stormers, try and throw it around a little bit too much, and the Sharks' game plan is schizophrenic as their log position dictates, and the Lions are only now sort of defining an effective game plan. So the Bulls create that space, and because of the quality of their backline and the quality of the coaching of the backline that has evolved this season, they are able to execute way better. So I give the I give the Stormers a shot, right? But percentage-wise, I think the Bulls have a slightly better chance in this game. And I mean, we didn't even see the Bulls, like no one anticipated. I distinctly remember watching that Bulls versus Leinster game years ago in the playoffs, thinking like, "Oh, the Bulls are going to lose, but let's just see what they learn from it," and they won. So I'm hoping for a similar result.
Adam, as a neutral, what are you expecting from this one?
I'm actually quite excited for this one. I think it could be a really good game. It's like things that were brought up in this conversation that I didn't really have a think of in terms of like it being played on a non-artificial pitch is like I was like, oh, that's it's quite an interesting one to think about. I think that the Bulls can go into this one thinking that they just need to throw the absolute kitchen sink at it. Glasgow, um, I think it's relatively in their it's in their park really. I think it's theirs to lose. If I'm to be taking lots of takes today, but I think it is. I think it's their game to lose. I think they would want that final in Scotland as well. We haven't had
No.
bar last year. We've only had one Northern Hemisphere final in the
Yeah.
URC.
All two. I think we've had two in Cape Town, one in Pretoria, one in Dublin.
Yeah, so having that in Scotland as well would be massive, and I can imagine, like not to speak about well, Edinburgh as well, but I can find that Edinburgh and Glasgow fans, Ethan, you could probably correct me, they're quite nice to each other compared to like province, so you could probably fill that stadium up in terms of the URC and actually have quite a good crowd for them. Um, but yeah, I think Glasgow's to win. I fully expect to see a final in Glasgow. Not to put the Bulls away, but I think it's the travel aspect as well. It's the travel aspect as well. But Glasgow, I'd say Glasgow by 10, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy about that, Ethan.
Well, yeah, I'll happily take a win, but I think it might be a bit. I can see it being closer. That I don't think I'd love to be shown about this. I feel like all of our games have been quite close. That even when we've lost, I don't think it's ever been a blowout to the Bulls. Like I don't think we've ever like pummeled the Bulls. I think it's always been within a try or like just over like 8, 9 points.
Hmm.
So
One thing I will say is if the game comes down to scrums and kicking threes, the Bulls will win
Yeah.
because they are two areas, in my opinion, where they unquestionably are better than Glasgow. However,
Yeah.
modern rugby rarely comes down to those things anymore. So I think that the Glasgow are just more ready because I just feel like the Bulls' new game plan is still it doesn't. They're wearing clothes that don't quite fit yet. Like they've got a jacket that's a size too small for them, and they need to lose a bit of weight to get into it properly. That's kind of how I would describe the Bulls at the moment. That's not to say that they're bad because they're clearly not. They're in a semi-final, so I'd be stupid and wrong to say if they were bad. But I just think the Glasgow are because as well for Glasgow, this could be the last rodeo because they've got a lot of top players leaving, and the replacements aren't of the same caliber, in my opinion. So.
And that Glasgow performance in
yeah,
the second half against Connacht was like so good. It was as if Glasgow showed that they've been there before. They've won this tournament, they've been in playoff games, and they shifted gears so efficiently and so effectively that they like blew Connacht away in the second half. So yeah, we're going to see that type of momentum from Glasgow, maybe even in the first half because of the quality of the opposition. And yeah, it's two extremely exciting semifinals.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the end of the show. I hope everybody's enjoyed us talking about these four fascinating rugby matches and previewing the two fascinating ones yet to come. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you're listening on audio, give us a 5-star rating, share links with friends, do all the things. You can even leave a comment on Spotify. And that just leaves me to say many thanks to Irish Adam, South African Mohammed, and Scottish Ethan.
Cheers, thank you.
thank you.
For the purposes of this show, I've been Welsh Hugh. Enjoy your rugby, and I hope that everybody's team wins. Bye.